Hello and welcome to a brand new series of Hanna and Eastwood Get Real. Yes, we are back and we are more heated than ever. In our first episode, we have a corker. We'll be touching on what we've missed over the summer, such as J.K. Rowling's new book and her transphobic comments, diversity and box ticking at the BBC, and of course the Tories and how well they are handling the pandemic of COVID-19. But you may have noticed that we are not alone. For today we have a fairly special guest. I say fairly because he lives with me and he is my father. And boy, with him in the episode, the debate is going to be wild. So please welcome to the show, Mark Hanna. And without further ado, let's get started. So I feel we should start with our big debate.
Yep.
Just because start with the big guns. Over the summer, Harry and I have touched on incompetence in the government. Not incontinence, as was stated over the summer. So touching on incompetence and competence in the current government, how do we think the government have handled the virus so far? And just to state to Harry and to Mark, Mark, if you would like to share your opinion first, and then I will take time to share mine, and then Harry will share his, and then the debate will get going. So Mark, over to you.
Well, apart from the Cummings incident, which has put a massive damper on whatever the government is done, and it's completely overshadowed whatever the government's done. I think they've handled it as well as they can. I mean, with all the protective equipment and stuff, that should have been kept up to date way before the Tories were in government. Basically, everyone's slating what Boris is doing, but would any other party do any better?
Very good point. That is a very good point. So I feel I could counter your argument in many ways, and we'll get on to debating whether they've done well or not. But first, I feel I have to say that this week's news has been interesting, which has just proved our point that we're continually making about incompetence in the current government. And can I just remind everybody, in case you may have forgotten, they run our bloody country. In a week that has seen Boris Johnson forget his own social distancing rules that he put in place, he attended an indoor carpentry session without a face mask, which is illegal, and without showing any sign of social distancing, which just goes to prove that our current government is a complete and utter shambles, and possibly one of the worst in a lifetime. We are now seeing that a second lockdown isn't out of the question, which of course means economic disaster and the failure of many small businesses and football clubs, such as my own, or mine and my dad's own Plymouth Argyle. And this couldn't be helped because Nobody saw a second wave, apparently. I do have an inside scoop, however, and this is a big one. So, when Mr. Johnson resigns, which is tipped to be sooner rather than later, his career change has been confirmed. He is currently taking bookings as Shambles the Clown, guaranteed to make every party a laughingstock, not just the Conservatives. I do have to say, however, both Harry and I have no political agenda against the Conservative Party, and I certainly feel that, as Mark stated, if Jeremy Corbyn were elected in December, he would have been as incompetent as Boris Johnson, and I feel we'd be in the same boat now. Whereas if Keir Starmer was in charge of Labour at the time, it may have been a different kettle of fish. But this situation isn't politics anymore. It's sheer incompetence. Why do we have to sit around and watch countries around us, including Scotland and Wales, impose hard lockdown restrictions, including a zero COVID stance, while we are making soft restrictions to tackle the virus? And we're not considering the implications of the future. The restrictions that we're putting in place now could potentially see us going into a third wave of the virus. We're not going to see the virus die. We as a country are being made to be a laughingstock. And personally, I thought after Brexit was finished with, I thought we were done. We were done as the laughingstock. But we are being made to be a laughingstock with pathetic, useless rules that even politicians who put them into place feel they don't have to follow. We can pinpoint where the trust was lost, and that was the Dominic Cummings incident where he travelled to Barnard Castle despite showing signs of COVID and despite being in a hard lockdown situation. And frankly, this whole pandemic has been absolutely shameful.
Yeah, right. Well, carrying on that line then, really, I could have selected a plethora of examples to illustrate my point of view. But luckily this week came along, and I'm just going to focus solely on this week because we've seen three absolutely catastrophic events take place for this government. So firstly, we found out earlier on in the week that Parliament bars are exempt from the 10 p.m. curfew. And that came as a bit of a shock. But for me, it's the double standards. You know, in the real world, you would be fined, these hospitality businesses would be fined and shut down if they were caught after 10 p.m. serving alcohol or drinks. So there was a huge outcry about it, and the government then said, oh no, Parliament bars are only going to serve food after 10 p.m. They're not going to serve alcohol. But normal bars and restaurants in the hospitality sector can't do that. If they serve food after 10 p.m, they would be shut down and fined. So this is inexplicable double standards. We then find midway through this week that Boris doesn't know his own rules. In an interview with the BBC about the restrictions that were imposed in the northwest because of a spike in COVID, Boris explained that the rule of six only applied to indoor settings, whereas we all know that, and the official guidance says that all settings it applies to, so outdoor and indoor settings. So he doesn't even know his own rules. So not only do we have a government that are exempt from their own rules, but they don't understand them either. And then finally, we had the video of Boris in the carpentry workshop with no social distancing and no mask. I have to condemn the others in the room as well, because they weren't doing it either. But do they not understand that lives are at stake here, and their reckless behaviour could cost lives? This is why I'm so angry about it, because lives are at stake. This is a pandemic, and this week has really shown their incompetence, their hypocrisy, and corruption, quite frankly. And something's got to shift. You cannot have a government that are setting out rules and restrictions in a pandemic and in a public health crisis where the rules don't apply to them, and then expect the public to comply and trust that government. It's just never going to work, and it's not working. You only have to go outside the front door and look around you to see that people are not following the rules anymore. And the trust, as you said, in the government, ever since Dominic Cummings, you can argue what you like, but that is the point at which public opinion changed. And ever since then, it's gone down and down. And this week, I think, has tipped it over the edge. And there's no worse position for a government to be in than if you lose the trust of the people. And that's exactly what's happening. And the people aren't going to listen to any more restrictions anymore. They have no authority anymore. People are just not going to listen. And I just want to reinforce the point that you made about the fact that I've been very critical of the government throughout the crisis. I've made no secret of that. I've just given my views. I've said it how it is. And it's not anything to do with political bias. Nothing to do with it at all. As I've said, I'm probably more right-wing than left-wing in my views. So it's nothing to do with that. It's irrelevant. As you said, this is a matter purely of incompetence. And we are seeing, they have demonstrated time and time again throughout the crisis. The facts are all there. We have one of the worst death rates in the world. We have one of the worst hit economies in Europe. We have these stupid rules in place now. And then we find out this week that the rules don't matter to the government because they're somehow higher than everyone else. I'm telling you now, the public won't stand for it. They're not going to stand for this, and people are furious. And Boris has got to go. We can't continue with a government that has no authority in a pandemic and a crisis as serious as this. So he's got to go. And that's all I have to say.
I completely agree with you. While we open up the floor now for debate, I completely agree with you in the fact that the only thing Boris can do to maintain any dignity that he has is to resign. The only problem is, who is going to want the job of Prime Minister under a Conservative Party or under any party, because of the mess of Brexit, because we've seen recently that the European law has been broken for Brexit, for how the coronavirus pandemic has been handled. Nobody is going to want to take charge of the country because of the mess that we're in.
Yeah, absolutely. It's I don't know what's going to happen, but I feel that there may be a vote of no confidence at some point, because more and more Tory MPs are speaking out about not only their annoyance about the COVID crisis, but because of Brexit. We've seen Theresa May stand up and say she cannot support the amended deal. When you're losing the trust of high-profile MPs of your own party like that, it's not a good sign, is it? And at some stage, I think there's going to be a vote of no confidence. But you know, this is only speculation at this point. You can't say.
I was highly critical of Mrs. May.
Yeah.
I think everybody was. But personally, I believe that if she were still in power, I feel she would have handled this a lot better than Boris, because she was very much like Margaret Thatcher, and she
tried to be.
She tried very much to be like Margaret Thatcher, and she didn't take any hassle off of anybody. And we saw that with Brexit. And I think, unfortunately, Brexit was what broke the woman and made her resign. But But I think if she were given this task of handling a pandemic of this stature, she would have given her cabinet strict instructions on what they had to do. She would have followed her rules. She would have known what her rules were. I just feel she was a better Prime Minister than Boris Johnson will ever be, and she would have handled this a lot better than Boris will ever handle this situation.
Just to bring Mark in again, I was noting down some things as he was speaking, and one of the things you said was, would any other party do any better? And all I have to say to that is, look at New Zealand and what they did, and how they are a similar situation. They are an island, and they have control of this, and they are practically back to normal life. And look at the mess we're in. So, you know, it is possible that another party could have actually got a handle of this, as New Zealand have demonstrated.
Yeah, but the problem is when Boris took over, all the supplies of PPE weren't kept up to date. So, I mean, you look at that, and that's put on his shoulders straight away and makes him look.
I have to say that in your opening statement, you said that before the Conservative government were in place, the PPE wasn't updated.
Yeah.
But the Conservative Party have been in power for 10 years. So if the correct PPE hasn't been in place, then the country's in a worse situation than we think it is.
Yeah, but that comes down to the leaders that you've had before. I mean, you've also had Labour in charge.
Not for 10 years. Not for at least 10 years.
Yeah, but what would have happened if this happened 10 years ago? We'd be in exactly the same boat as we are now.
Well, you're saying that
no one actually expected anything like this to happen.
No, I get that. I get that no one anticipated it was going to happen. But how do you explain the fact, this is another absolute fiasco, that they discharged lots of elderly people from hospital without checking if they were negative and threw them back into care homes and let an epidemic spiral out of control in care homes? How do you justify that?
Well, there is no justifying it.
Exactly.
I have to say, both of you agreeing on Mark's statement that nobody saw this coming.
Well, they didn't. Everyone was taken off guard, is what I would say. And it's not an excuse; it's just a fact that everyone was.
Everybody saw it coming. Everybody saw it grow in China, and everybody saw it make its way through Europe, through Italy, through Spain, through France, and finally to us. Why were we so unprepared for that?
I think the answer is we were slower than everyone else. Everyone was shocked by it and didn't know how to react. But we waited and watched everyone else do what they did, and then delayed and delayed and delayed until it was too late. And
we were late going into lockdown, into a proper lockdown, where we didn't have the appropriate PPE.
Like I've said to you before, Sam, the problem is Boris is getting all this information from his advisors and everything else that he can only do with the information that he's given.
Well, in that case, I know Dominic Cummings is his main advisor, isn't he? Or he is one of his main advisors. I think if his advisors are giving him information to go into lockdown late, to not be fully prepared, then there's only one thing, and that is to get rid of the advisors that he has and get proper advisors in who know what they're doing. Get proper cabinet ministers in who know what they're doing and know the rules that are in place and aren't afraid to follow the rules, because they are setting an example to the rest of Britain. When we are seeing a government that keeps their parliament bars open after 10 o'clock, despite telling everyone else that after 10 they have to go home. I constantly refer to this because it makes me laugh. Hunting. The rule of 6 doesn't apply to hunting. Why? That makes no sense.
I have no explanation.
Why not? When they are making rules that make them exempt from the proper rules, nobody is going to trust them. Nobody is going to listen to what they say, which is just going to make the pandemic 10 times worse.
But the problem is, even before this, people weren't listening. With the first lockdown, you know yourself, people weren't listening at all.
They were to start with.
No, down here they weren't. We had a heat wave. People packed Whitsun Beach.
Yeah.
And you think, surely people have got common sense.
Yes, I do agree that it is partly the public's fault as well, because there's no doubt about it that the members of the public have been completely stupid and ignorant and have blatantly ignored the rules and become very complacent over the summer, which is the video that I posted earlier on in the summer on this channel, telling people not to get complacent because this has not gone away. So, you know, but to say that this is, it's not solely because of the general public. It is primarily a government issue here.
But I mean, if people actually use their common sense,
yeah, I get that.
I mean,
it would help.
I mean, we had a case of COVID down here a couple of weeks ago. A group of friends come back off holiday, decided to go out drinking, and one of them had COVID. And you're thinking, really?
It is a terrible, terrible situation. Do you have any more questions? Does anyone have any more?
I was going to make a comment, and my mind has gone blank. So I think I'm done now.
Nothing new there, Sam.
Okay. One thing I'm just going to finally say is that I whilst, you know, they clearly made mistakes in the first wave, and they saw what was going on around the world and what other countries were doing. And you know, the first wave was a disaster, and there's nothing they could do about that. But whilst we were going through the summer and the cases were going down, the government had time to prepare themselves, reflect on what they did in the first wave, and look at what they did wrong and how they can best prepare for the second wave. And they can look at other countries like New Zealand and places like that that have successfully handled this. Why did they not prepare themselves adequately to not make the same mistakes again with this imminent second wave coming, which everyone could have seen coming?
I've just remembered what I was going to say on complacency. I feel that people were always being complacent during the first main lockdown. I say the first because we know that there is the potential for a second, especially over winter. I feel the complacency has grown more and more as we ease out of lockdown, because Boris and the government are trying to push, or were trying to push, everyone going back to work, children going back to school, and everyone is thinking, great, life is going back to normal, pubs are open, schools are open, work is open, everything's back to normal. But now that complacency had kicked in, those rules of pubs having to close at 10 o'clock, harder lockdown restrictions, those are coming into place. You have to work from home if you can. Those are coming into place because people were taking rules and being completely stupid with them. So yes, we can blame the government. We can say the government haven't handled the virus or the pandemic very well. But it's also about how people are taking the rules, how people are seeing how the government are producing the rules, and the complacency of whether people are saying, okay, this is serious, we need to take this seriously, and which I thought people were doing when 43,000 people were dying and thousands were dying per day. Or you can be the type of person that says, sod this, I want life to return to normal. I'm not being told what I can do, what I can't do, and so people need to sort their ideas out and listen to the government. The government are in charge.
The problem is, why would they listen to the government now? When, if you're saying the issue here is public complacency, how does it help when you have the Prime Minister and members of the government blatantly flouting the rules that they've set out themselves? You know, if we're saying that the problem here is public complacency, this is only going to make it worse, which backs up my point that the government are setting a terrible example here, and it's not acceptable.
Why should it be one rule for one and another rule for another?
It's just making matters worse. If they're blaming the public, they're not doing themselves any favours by breaking the rules themselves.
Why do I have to meet 6 people for a Sunday roast, and yet Boris can go out with 7 friends hunting? It makes no sense whatsoever.
But the problem is, no matter what government or politicians or whatever you have, it's always been one rule for one and one for another. I mean, you look at the budget, spirits never go up, but tobacco and everything else does go up.
Yeah. I think it's safe to say we can leave that debate there. We would both like to thank Mark for braving the challenge of debating us.
And can I just say, this is the good thing about this channel. We can all have a bit of a debate, and then all smile at the end of it and put our differences aside, because that's what this is all about. We shouldn't have to cancel people because you don't agree with them.
I'll just put extra chili sauce on your jacket next time you come to the
Well, we can all share. We can all have different opinions, but it doesn't mean that we have to dislike each other.
Everyone has an opinion, and me and you've debated several times, Sam, and disagreed.
Yeah.
And if everyone had the same opinion, life would be boring.
Yeah,
exactly. So both of us would like to thank Mark for being the first to brave the challenge of debating us. We'd love to have you back at some point soon. But yes, so now everybody knows how everyone stands on COVID-19.
Yeah. All right. Cheers for joining us, and time for the next segment of the episode.
So how do we follow a segment like that? Well, over the summer, we've seen J.K. Rowling in the firing line for apparently making some transphobic comments, saying that there are only two genders. And now her new book is under scrutiny for also being transphobic. It's a really interesting and strange story. What do you think?
Absolutely. So she's obviously been at the centre of accusations of transphobia because of her new book, and it's called Troubled Blood, because it features a male killer who dresses up as a woman. So let's be clear on that for a start. This is not a transgender person. This is a transvestite. And a journalist called Benjamin Butterworth. I'm referring to a particular Good Morning Britain clip, which was aired about 2 weeks ago now, I think, where they were discussing this issue. And he was arguing that, and I've got a direct quote here, that this book smears transgenders, and that it's offensive to transgenders and is transphobic. And firstly, the first point is, he was referring specifically to transgenders there, but this book is about this is a transvestite character. So already he's getting those two terms mixed up, which in itself could cause offence. So, you know, he's already kicked himself in the foot there. And my overarching opinion on this, you know, I haven't read the book myself, but from what I've read about the description of it and from seeing that interview, you know, this sounds like a step in the right direction, this book, because it should please the trans community, surely, because it's being more, when you have an author who writes a book and includes a character who's a transvestite, it's more inclusive, and it's more representative of the society that we live in today. And 2020 has been all about equality, isn't it? That's what Black Lives Matter was supposed to be about, but it turns out it's not. But everyone's argument is equality for LGBTQ+, for BAME communities. So surely they should be happy about this. I don't understand. There are more and more. There is a growing community of transgender people and transvestites. So it's very probable that there could be a killer who dresses up as a woman or is a transgender. You know, it's not out of the question, because that's the society we live in today. And if my opinion is, sorry, I just finished. If you are trying to cancel a book that has a transvestite or a transgender killer in it, then surely that is more transphobic, because that is saying that they're against the idea that a killer could be a transgender or a transvestite. So that's actually transphobic in itself if you are cancelling a book purely because it has a character that is part of the trans community. It's complete nonsense, this opinion. And it turns out that the guy accusing her of transphobia hadn't even read the book. So he didn't have a leg to stand on. And it's a serious accusation to fire at a high-profile celebrity author in the UK, who's one of the most popular authors, probably because of Harry Potter. You can't just throw around accusations about transphobia or that they're racist or, you know, what the snowflakes like to do, unless you have a concrete, solid argument. And he has no argument. You can't back yourself up when you haven't actually read the book that you are arguing about. And this is what we're battling with, these people that start an argument for the sake of arguing and don't know what they're arguing about. And that's the cancel culture.
Would the shoe be on the same foot if it was a woman dressing up as a man?
You do have the ones, don't you?
If a woman with short hair dressed up in a suit and tie, and went out pretending to be a man to kill these people, would the shoe be on the same foot? I don't think it would. George Galloway, I remember, was on this Good Morning Britain clip, and he was also interviewed along with Benjamin Otterworth and a trans activist. And George Galloway, I think I remember he stated that in the 1960s, Alfred Hitchcock released a film called Psycho. Now, Psycho is one of the most iconic movies ever. And can we just state, Norman Bates dressed up as his mother to kill his victims, and yet people aren't complaining about that.
No.
John Cleese has also been cancelled this week because he publicly signed a letter along with some other celebrities standing in solidarity of J.K. Rowling. So just because he says, I support J.K. Rowling, her book is very good, her work is very good, her comments didn't mean to hurt anybody, there was no harm in her comments. Apparently that's all a good reason to cancel somebody in 2020. And we know that people in 2020 will go for anything to cancel. They won't hold back against anything. And every little thing that people say and do, some trolls, some snowflakes are looking for something to start an argument about. And it's getting pathetic.
It is.
It is really getting pathetic.
This is a prime example of it. Prime example of someone not knowing. This is what I feel with Black Lives Matter, that everyone jumped on a bandwagon and thought they knew what they were supporting when they didn't read into it. You have to read into these things. This bloke, Benjamin Butterworth, is a disgrace because he went on that programme having not read this book, and he is accusing someone of transphobia. It's not acceptable. You can't throw these words and accusations around. Absolutely disgraceful.
I could say that Monty Python is a complete disgrace because several of their sketches are of them dressed up as women. Now, of course, I have seen Monty Python, so I can make that judgment. But if I had never seen Monty Python and I made a comment such as that, I have no leg to stand on.
No.
Lots of comedians over the years have made their money by dressing up as women. I dress up as a woman.
Here we go, the bombshell.
Several times.
What Sam does
in various shows. When BLM was launched, we saw David Walliams and Matt Lucas apologise for dressing up as black characters. Are we now going to see them apologise for dressing up as ladies?
Well, it's getting there, isn't it?
Are we going to see
that up at some point?
Are we going to see people try to cancel Little Britain even further for David Walliams using the phrase "I'm a lady" while clearly dressed up as a transvestite? Are we going to see the League of Gentlemen cancelled for featuring several sketches of men dressed up as women? How far are people going to go with this?
Who knows? But I wouldn't like to guess, to be honest. It's going to go on and on, this. And I just wish people would stop bowing down to these people who, most of them, haven't got a leg to stand on because they don't know what they're arguing about. So, let's get that straight. But yeah, I think it's time to move on to...
That's a very nice segue onto our final segment of the episode, which is all about box ticking and the wonderful word diversity, because in 2020 we are all about diversity. Now, what I mean by box ticking at the BBC and on TV in general. This has been happening for years, but in times of BLM and transphobic comments, we are seeing this happen more and more. First example, after BLM happened, obviously BLM took America by storm, far more than it did over here. We have seen several voice actors for both The Simpsons and Family Guy who have made a living on those programs because they have both been going for years, and the voice actors have never changed for our characters such as Apu, Cleveland, Dr. Hibbert, and now we're seeing that those voice actors have been sacked because the voice actors are white.
It's a cartoon, and it's called acting.
How can you have a black character voiced by a white person in 2020? Apparently it's shameful and it's disgusting, and apparently we need black people voicing black characters.
Well, with a cartoon, you can't see who is voicing the character.
Exactly.
So why does it matter? Completely ridiculous.
We have also seen the news that over the summer that Sue Barker has been replaced or been sacked.
And so have
a question.
The two team captains as well.
And so have the two team captains from a question of sport. Now it's being reported that Alex Scott,
Yeah.
is tipped to replace Sue Barker. Alex Scott is one of the finest English women footballers of her time. She is obviously retired now, but the thing that brought the attention of the nation is the fact that she is a black, or I don't think she's completely black. I think she's a mixed race woman. Now, if that isn't diversity, if they're not looking to tick a box, I don't know what it is. Another prime example of this, in 2017, I believe, Darcy Bustle left Strictly Come Dancing as one of the judges that had been on there for many years. Now she had been replaced by a nobody who was the sister of professional dancer Oti Mabuse. So Motsi Mabuse, who is a nobody. Nobody had heard of her before Strictly Come Dancing, replaced Darcy Bustle in an all-star, in what was an all-star lineup for the judging team. And it makes you think, how far are we going to go with box ticking? We're seeing rumours this week that Paul Merton and Ian Hislop are being sacked from Have I Got News for You after 30 years. After 30 years on the programme. But of course they are only rumours at the moment. If anything happens, then we will be the first to inform you. Over at ITV, Simon Cowell during lockdown has a biking accident, meaning that he can partake in the Britain's Got Talent semi-finals and finals. Who replaces him? None other than Ashley Banjo. And then what does he do in the first semi-final? He politicises it with his disturbing dance about BLM. Now, any information on that dance can be found in some of our other videos about snowflakes, because this isn't the first time this has been brought up. But frankly, the BBC and the way they're handling their staff at the moment, they are making sure that their women are being paid more, or if not similar wages to some of the BBC big guns, such as Gary Lineker. I think Zoe Ball is
paid
being
over
paid.
£1 million.
She is one of the highest women on the wage bill at the BBC. It's completely shameful, and I think personally, I don't believe the quality of TV since they started the box ticking, and since it's come to light about box ticking, their quality of TV is declining. And is it worth TV license? Is it worth you paying your license? I don't think so. I have seen lots of people starting to argue against the paying of the license fee, which of course is all paid by the British public, and apparently it goes to wonderful TV programs. But we are now seeing that it is funding the wage slip just so that a woman can be paid the same as a man to.
But she's not being paid the same. Zoe Ball is not being paid the same as most other men.
No, but
the BBC.
But she is being paid a larger amount to make it look better than it was. Finally, from me, Doctor Who. Doctor Who is a series that both Harry and I have loved for many years. Now, in the last 3 or 4 years, we have seen the series decline massively. In Peter Capaldi's final season, we saw his companion be an absolute box ticker because she was a black lesbian. The character was written as a black lesbian, and then I'm sure that the snowflakes went wild at the end of the series because, spoiler alert, she dies. A Cyberman kills her off, and I'm sure the snowflakes went wild for an alien to kill a black lesbian. It's an absolute shock. Nobody should hurt any of our black people. Nobody should hurt any of our lesbians, because they are a national treasure. They are the only thing that is keeping the snowflakes going. And then we see the 13th Doctor. Huge speculation at the time. Who is going to be the next Doctor? Chris Marshall being the favourite to take the place. Everybody tuned in on July the 10th during Wimbledon to see that exclusive clip of who is going to be the next Doctor. Only for massive Whovian fans to be disappointed that it was none other than Jodie Whittaker. Now, I don't mind Jodie Whittaker as an actress. She has her moments in Doctor Who. It's a shame that Chris Chibnall, the current writer, feels that every episode needs to be diverse. It needs to have box ticking. Her companions, Bradley Walsh, an older man, proving that older men can still travel and live life to the full. Toysin Cole, a young black man, and Mandip Gill, a young black female. More box ticking. Each week is political, politicized. I'm surprised the Snowflakes didn't complain about the Rosa Parks episode. Because
Well,
I
no,
know
the Snowflakes would have been happy about that because
because I know it was about the time, and I know it was set in the time, but some of the language was absolutely appalling for a 6 o'clock kid friendly show. Because of course we know it can't be kid friendly anymore because it's diverse. Because it's diverse, and the monster aliens are really human/tree hybrids that are only trying to kill us because we destroyed the earth. And I think that is how pathetic the BBC has got. It's using BBC One primetime TV to promote diversity to kids, to say it's okay to be a lesbian. We're seeing, or I saw during the summer, or just before the summer, CBBC, the children's, or the teenager channel for BBC, aired its first same-sex kiss.
oh, okay, I wouldn't know.
And part of me was thinking, that's great. That's great. Obviously, someone felt the need to put that into an episode of a kids' drama. The other part of me was thinking, why? Is this really appropriate? If I was a parent of a child who watched CBBC, I wouldn't be happy for my child to be watching that. It's not something that you come home from school, you look forward to watching TV, and you see that. You don't come home from school to watch CBBC to see that.
No.
And I don't want to say I don't want to say that I'm homophobic. I don't want to say that I'm transphobic. I don't want to say that I'm racist. But I think the whole box ticking department at the BBC is really, really disgusting. I don't know how they can sleep at night because it's shameful.
Yeah.
Even
And if I could
they should be ashamed of themselves. They are making money out of making the snowflakes happy, cancelling what people know and what people love, and going with some tripe that we pay a license fee for. How does that make sense?
If I could say something, I would just like to start off firstly with the question of sport thing. And obviously, Sue Barker, in my opinion, is probably the best sports anchor that we have on TV. She is absolutely brilliant at what she does. And the two team captains, they have been a trio on that show for years and years. And it's a winning format. People tune in. They have made the program what it is. The presenters and the team captains. And I can't understand the mentality of a media corporation like the BBC, that are supposed to be competing with all of these other media outlets that want to slash and reorganize a show that is successful and that is bringing in ratings. Why would they want? What is their aim there? How do they benefit from that? Surely, if you've got a show that's got a winning format and it's a successful show, why change it? Why does it benefit them to change the format, change the people on it for people who are less well known and less popular? And the inevitable result is that they lose ratings. So they'd rather lose ratings in a competitive media market than carry on. It's just ludicrous. Carrying on with the same format. They should be sticking to these shows that work and not changing them for the sake of pleasing the snowflakes. It doesn't benefit them in any way. I don't get it. I just don't get the mentality of it when you're a media corporation like that. And secondly, I want to just comment about Doctor Who for a minute, because I absolutely despised every single episode since Chris Chibnall took over. It has been a diabolical disgrace, and it has lost everything that it was. It was all about aliens and invasions and space and all of that stuff. And every single episode, every character, every choice on that show since Chibnall took over was political. And it's not a political show. And that is why the ratings for that show have bombed. Can they not? Why are they so thick that they can't see this? The BBC can't see that their ratings have plummeted on a show that in David Tennant's era, and even in Matt Smith's era, when they were doing proper Doctor Who episodes, that was a success, and they were bringing in huge ratings. And now they can't see, they are blind to the fact that they have lost millions and millions of viewers because they have lost the plot with what Doctor Who is. And I really hope that after the negative backlash in the first series, that Chris Chibnall would rethink and would perhaps even get rid of Jodie Whittaker. Because you said you don't mind it. In my opinion, she's not right for the role. I don't think she fits the bill at all. I don't think she is suited as a Doctor, and I don't like the character that she plays. I think, why can't these media outlets go back to hiring people for roles that are good rather than ticking boxes? Just hire them because they're right for the role and that they're good for the role. Don't hire them because they tick a box. It's very straightforward, and as you say, I think the BBC have lost the plot, and it's getting worse and worse, and they are in serious trouble as far as I'm concerned, because people are seeing through this. People are not stupid. They've had enough of them meddling with perfectly good TV programs and changing them up for the sake of pleasing the snowflake. It's completely disgraceful. And I really worry for the future of quality television. As you say, that the quality of television is really depleting. We're losing the quality TV shows that we once had, and it's really depressing. So,
and if we're going to get that quality back, we need to show the BBC how serious we are about wanting the quality of our TV back. Because if they don't get the message, nothing will change.
No. And yet they still don't get the message when they see ratings plummet. I honestly can't understand it. Who is running? Who are at the top of the BBC and don't have the brains to see that their ratings are going down? And they're not getting it. They're not getting the hint that they are making huge mistakes here by meddling with shows that are a success. It's total nonsense. They've lost their minds. And yeah, I think we could talk about this all night and probably all series, but
well, thus ends another episode of Hanna and Eastwood Get Real. I hope you have enjoyed this week's season opener. It's been massive.
it has.
Not even I predicted how big this was going to be, how heated we were going to get. We will be back next week with one of our all exclusive countdown episodes, which will see some real debate because it is the top 10 80s tracks. So we better get
That'll be fun.
Yeah, it's good. I think we could fall out many times over during the episode. Remember to like the Facebook page Hanna and Eastwood Get Real. Subscribe to us on YouTube to be the first to see any new clips, new episodes, new material, and stay safe and stay sane. We need sane people in the world.